Good morning to everyone listening at the Twitter space. My name is Zanele Thabede Vilakati, and I am in the Effective and Participatory Governance portfolio under the UNDP. Today, we'll be having a discussion on gender equality and non-discrimination, and I am here with a panel. I will let them introduce themselves.
Greetings to you, Zanele, and greetings to all our viewers. My name is Mpendulo Masuku. I am with the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister, particularly the Department of Gender and Family Issues. And I'm happy to be here.
Good morning, Zanele. Good morning, viewers. My name is Sizakele Hlatswayo. I'm the National Director at Women in Law in Southern Africa, Eswatini. Thank you.
Hey, Zanele. Hey, panelists. And Twitter world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, depending on where in the world you're tuning into.
Definitely.
My name is Thamsanqa Sibanze, aka the Courtesy of Hip Hop, and I'm an artist ambassador for the United Nations, specifically the UNFPA, on a program called Safeguard Young People, where we're going around the region and just equipping the youth on sexual and reproductive health rights.
Thank you very much, Tammy, for that elaborate introduction. I would have done like a very colorful introduction of everybody, but since they insisted on introducing themselves, I'm glad we went through that. So today we'll be having a very robust discussion on GBV and gender. As we all know, Eswatini has the statistics of 1 in 4 young girls and young women will go through gender-based violence in their lifetime. So I would like to know what interventions can be implemented to accelerate progress on GBV response in Eswatini?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that question, Zanele. So there's a couple of things that can be done. I'll take it from the top down. So from government side, government has a role to play. Particularly, we need to effect and implement laws and enforce laws that are addressing gender-based violence. And I think we already have the Sexual Offences and Domestic Violence Act, which is a good start. And I think the next step really is to ensure that we implement and effectively enforce those laws. And also moving on to civil society organizations, faith-based community, I think they also have a role to play, particularly supporting survivors and also ensuring that they take it up a bit notch in terms of the activism, particularly in the communities, to say, let's get the information there, let's get people educated in terms of what gender-based violence is, how they identify and where to report and where to get help. And also from an individual level, I think there's also an important role. I think we've been moving around with a lot of partners on the GBV Charter, particularly, which is more personal, from the personal level as an individual, that commitment to say, you will not participate, you will not partake, and you will not be a bystander, when you see something like this happening. So I think, all these different levels, there's a lot that we can do, that we need to do it to actually ensure that we try to eradicate the scourge of gender-based violence.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've mentioned quite a few important things. I don't know if any of the other panelists would like to add on that, because all of these things that Mr. Masuku is mentioning are things that are actually happening and have been happening, but we can see GBV is still escalating in our communities. Do you have anything to add, maybe?
Thank you, Zanele and Mpendulo, for your input into this issue. I think what I can add is that the law in itself is not a solution. Mm-hmm. We need to have a multi-pronged approaches to addressing gender-based violence. So it could be the law, yes, it provides that framework overarching, to have us, address the issue. But we also need to, as you have mentioned, to keep talking, to partners, to stakeholders, to also ordinary citizens in Eswatini, to make sure that everyone is alive to the issue, to the challenge that GBV, pose to the society.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just to add on to what the panelists have already said, it's this for me, which is sort of like my area of focus, is the emphasis on schools and the educational sectors, where we're going into the spaces with young people to actually, from a very early age, teach them about consent and healthy relationships. Because in some of our findings, especially as we move around the region in different parts, we're finding that a lot of the time, by the time the person is is a teenager or an adult and they find themselves in a violent situation or in an abusive relationship or situation, oftentimes people don't even understand that there's anything wrong with that situation that they are in because they have been brought up
To see it as
seeing
normal.
it and understanding or believing it as normal, or some other people even understand those actions as the definition or expression of what love is. So we have to go back to the very early grassroots levels to start to teach the young people about what is healthy love and healthy love expression.
Okay, I can see that we've actually covered all of the points. The law needs to take its effect. We need to do some advocacy, but we also need to go back to the basics. We should remember, listeners out there, that gender is what we perceive a person has to play in society. Gender roles are actually just perceived by society and given to the different sexes, right? So speaking about the law, Sizakele, you did say that the law itself cannot solve much, but what has the SODV done to bring changes in GBV response?
Yes, thank you. The SODV has allowed us to accelerate the awareness at national level. I think for me, the SODV is one of those popular legislation. Yeah. You will find people in community, you will find people in the banks, you will find on the streets, conductors of transport. Everyone would be talking about what SODV is. So it has really been populated, I think, widely. But other than that, I think as a country, before we had the SODV, we didn't have a tool that was affording us a platform to address issues of gender-based violence in court. It was dealt under the criminal law. And with that, it posed a problem or a challenge for survivors of gender-based violence, because it required high level of evidence beyond reasonable doubt, which means the evidence should then be without any doubt. Unfortunately, these are cases that happen between two people in a room somewhere. So the evidence was very difficult, and in most cases, most of those cases were then reduced to a lower offense. Okay. Even rape, because there was no evidence, then it was reduced. But what the SODV then did, it provided specific measures on how the court will then, receive the evidence without necessarily using the normal evidence level in court. So that allows that the people, even if the evidence will be with any doubt in general. But because now we have a specific law, it then allows the evidence to go through, and we are seeing, cases going through the court. So I think it has really changed the atmosphere and the environment in terms of how we can deal with gender-based violence.
Okay, thank you, Sizakele, for that comprehensive explanation on what the law has actually done in Eswatini. I think that the Twitter heads out there remember that we're live and you guys are hearing us, and you can ask any questions on the tweets. You can tweet about us and also ask any questions that we might try to feed into. So we spoke about the regional work that UNFPA Ambassador Thamsanqa is doing here to kind of like educate and advocate for the reduction of GBV. But what are the finer details and the finer things a person can do? Mpendulo spoke about the GBV Charter. I'd like to know more things that each individual can do and what role we can play in the reduction of GBV in our countries, in our societies.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think once again, from the individual level, because I think everything else, we can have the good laws, we can have the structures, the systems in place, but if the people probably are not cooperating, with whatever is put in place, it's probably not going to work. So that is why we're saying, from the individual level, at your own, at the personal level, and then also within your family, you need to ensure that you are making this commitment to say, I'm not going to be a perpetuator, and I'm not going to be a bystander. And if I see something like gender-based violence related happening, I need to take action. So, and then also moving then to the community. I think communities need to also begin to challenge, some of these harmful gender norms. I think we really, as societies, communities, we need to challenge them, because I think even from even if I am a good, upstanding citizen, when I walk out, in my community, I see certain things happening. But if I just walk by and I look the other way, it's not gonna, solve anything. But we really need to, mobilize communities, mobilize societies, from, our young people, also from the faith-based communities. We need to ensure that also they are also mobilized to understand the gender-based violence, to understand what to say and what not to say, and when to actually seek help. Because I know, from the faith community, you find that most of the time we tend to believe that probably, we can, try to address everything. But there's certain things that we need to seek help from professionals, from, other systems or other, institutions that are there within government. So really the key important thing for me, I think it's to, from the individual level, yes, and also as a community, as a collective, we really need, and community, I'm not just talking about at the chiefdom level, I'm talking about communities, even at workplaces, that's a community itself, so wherever we are, whether it's at work, whether it's at church, whether it's at school, that's a community. So we need to ensure that we build strong communities that understand and can challenge, some of these harmful gender norms and these attitudes that are perpetuating gender-based violence.
Yeah. I think, Zanele, just to add on to that, is to actually challenge, the individual, to challenge Zanele. Maybe let me talk to somebody on Twitter right now, to challenge the people on the other side of the screen to say, yes, we can approach these issues from a global, continental, regional, or even community level, but it comes back down to me as Thamsanqa. Know your rights, know your human rights. You know what I mean? And I'll just cite the situation that recently happened in Malawi, where young girls who had been in underage arranged marriages were rescued, and one of the issues that came up from that conversation was they didn't know that wasn't right.
Yeah.
They didn't know that is not supposed to happen. Sure. That as a 12, 13, 14-year-old, you're not supposed to be married off to a 50, 60, 70-year-old. They just didn't know. So I think that's why I'm just wanting to challenge each and every individual to say, on the different aspects of your being, know the rights that support you and actually will liberate you into becoming the fullest and the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and I guess that's where the NGO work, civil society comes in with with all of the civic space work and the work that you're doing to make people aware of their rights so that they're able to know, and also to make them aware of gender stereotypes around there. Speaking of gender stereotypes and norms, we have a community, the LGBTIQ+ community. And I would like to ask this question, Tami. What are some of the challenges that this community faces in the different societies, and what can the UN and government in particular do to actually help this community get out of those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, in the space of Safeguard Young People, we find ourselves working with so many different sectors, and the LGBTQI community is definitely one of those sort of like groups of people that we work with. And some of the things that come out from there is things like, so obviously the challenges differ depending on the society that we're working with, because there's cultural and political and then social sort of like barriers or boundaries that occur in the different societies. But it's issues around acceptance, because I think for me, that's the one thing that we are really sort of like advocating and pushing for. I cannot fully be me if I cannot let you fully be you. And in the space again of rights can we stop this thing of demanding special rights and demand equal rights. You know what I mean? There's just this thing that's going on where people want to say, "Hey, I want the ability to grow and be me, but I'm going to monitor or I'm going to put a cap on how you can be you." And in that space, we're not allowing ourselves for growth. We're not allowing ourselves for community. So there's also just like this decriminalization of choice.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if we're talking about human rights, we need to just allow for people to make a choice. Allow me to be me in the best way possible. So when you go into certain spaces, you find that it's criminal for me to even make a choice in terms of my preference regarding sexuality. So it's just elements like that that I think the UN and at a government policy level, we need to sort of just like zero in on to say, are we allowing, do we allow, or rather, are we creating a community and a society that is tolerant and that is conducive for everybody to be the best version of whoever they choose or decide to be?
I like that. I really like that. Just this morning, I was reading a quotation that said, how you make people feel about themselves says a lot about you.
Absolutely.
So we'll just end that one right there because it's really meaningful and it just says a lot. So are our programs inclusive and of all populations and groups? I will have each panelist answer this one because I'm asking each and every one. Government, are our programs inclusive? UNFPA ambassador, it seems like it. CSO, are our programs inclusive? Mr. Masuku.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that one. I think from the side of government, as you understand, we are, party to a number of conventions, including the Convention for Persons with Disabilities and others. So I think from that side, from having said that, from the legislative point of view, going down to policies and then programs and then projects and. So we have tried to align in terms of having the laws aligned to these conventions and particularly to our national constitution, which is, has a very beautiful Bill of Rights, for everyone, equality and all of those things. So we ensure that at least the legal framework is conducive. And also then moving on to the policy space again, we do have, policies that are conducive, policies that ensure that we are in alignment with all of those conventions. So in terms of now our programs, aligned, our, services even aligned to ensuring that, we're inclusive and so on. I will say maybe not 100%, but I think it's something that we are moving towards as a country, because I think it's going to be, some of these things, they take a lot of resources, because I think I'll make an example for one, there's this principle of reasonable accommodation when you're speaking to about, persons with disabilities, for instance, So reasonable accommodation says, even if, we can all get equal opportunities, but for a person with a particular disability or rather particular, ability different from us, we have to make that reasonableness, reasonable accommodation to ensure that they also are able to participate within the same space that we are at. Not to say, no, because we've given each one of us $100, so we should be, equally accessing these services and so on and so forth. But because, I'm differently able, so then there's certain things that government also need to do to put in place to ensure that, all of us are equally able to access whatever opportunities, whatever, services that are there. So those are some of the things that we're still working on. And I think, as part of the work that, our office is also doing, trying to operationalize, particularly the Act for Persons with Disabilities and amongst others. So those are some of the things that we really are working towards, which I may say, I think we're 80%, 90% there, but, it's work in progress, in a nutshell.
I like the way he corrected himself. He started with disabled people to people who are differently able than us to people with a different ability. I really like that spectrum because it means we're all learning. Sizakele.
Yes, with civil society and our programs in terms of inclusivity, I would say we have improved. From where we were. I think a few years ago, we were really focused on organizations like Women in Law, we're just looking at women, we're looking at girls. However, we have seen that over the years, we are now trying our best to ensure that even in that classification of women and girls, we are also mindful that there are different categories of women. Women are not homogeneous. So we are targeting, interventions to address, people that are challenged in different ways, people with different status, and people who have special needs, So I think it's an area that everyone, as the Mpendulo has pointed out, everyone is learning. We are learning and we are improving on how we make sure that our services are actually, accommodating everyone in society.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I just want to piggyback on that to say there's definitely been a lot of improvement in that space, especially where our different programs are concerned, because also we have to take into account there's a lot of sometimes cultural barriers that we're having to break through first before we get into a space where we can actually invite everybody to sit at the table and have these conversations or even partake in the programs. Like for instance, here today, we did, in case somebody's wondering why are we having conversations about the LGBTQI community without representation, we did extend an invitation to Sisanda, who's the director of the LGBTQI Consortium. Unfortunately, she's not in the country, but we definitely have representation in all of the programs that we're rolling out. If anybody has had the privilege to be here and be a part of the Bushfire Schools Festival, for instance, there you'll see, or red and yellow, black and white, and all the precious colors and all the precious, forms of the human family that are represented within this space. So yes, definitely, all of the programs take everyone into consideration, or at least afford everyone the possibility to participate.
I like what we said, that we are learning. We're all getting there. And I liked what the DPM's office, Gender and Family Issues Department representative, Mr. Masuku here, said, that we're getting there. I think the conventions, the international conventions, drive our governments to being more inclusive, but also more mindful on how we operate. So as we close, I'd like each panelist to give us some parting words on everything that we've talked about, whether it's about GBV or gender, and some of the words that you would like the listeners out there to actually get from you.
Yeah. So I think from me, you can, even if you forget about everything that we've said, just remember this one thing. Violence, gender-based violence, but particularly violence in itself, is a decision. It can be changed. It's not like it's something that you wake up and you're infected with, violence and all of those things. But it's something that you decide to do, so you can also decide not to do. And that, yes, I know that different circumstances, but rather from an individual level, I think it's important for me to say, we really need to come to this realization that you can actually make that change. If you just make that decision as a person to say, I want to change this, I need to play a part, within your family, within your society or community, and even nationally at large, I think you can play that part, in terms of changing the situation rather than the status quo.
Those are some powerful words. Make the right decision.
Yeah. Yes, my parting words will be, with this SODV being in place and being implemented, I would urge all law enforcers, practitioners to take the cases so serious, the cases that are being reported, that we see most of the cases going through. Yes, there has been improvement. We are seeing more and more cases reaching a judgment level, but we still have those challenges whereby, certain cases are are stuck somewhere. So it would be just to add to say, let's be practical, let's be intentional wherever we are. If you are maybe an NGO that receives clients, you action. If you are within the police, you action. The court, we don't have cases that are stalling in our courts. So I think if that happens, we will be having justice for the survivors of gender-based violence. Maybe also to add that I think the male involvement in the GBV response is also critical. At times we then, talk about women, girls, but I think it's high time that men also feel that it is their voice that we need. Thamsanqa here, Mpendulo here, we need their voice to be very loud, so that even those men who would think it's for women, but they will then come on board and say, I'm standing to be counted. Thank you very much.
Okay, so what I'm getting is that just apply the law as it is and with its guidance and its confines.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zanele. Education and awareness. For me, that's my point of emphasis, education and awareness. The information is already out there. The science, the statistics, the facts, it's out there. It's on me as an individual and on us as a society, as a community, to go out there and find out what does the law say about my ability to grow and my ability to be the best version of myself. And to the current generation, my challenge to us is, can we please raise a generation that will not have to recover from us being their parents? And to the young people, please participate in creating the environment and the future that you would love to be a part of.
Excellent, Thamsanqa. Obviously, you always have great words for departure. Thank you very much to everyone for listening to us, even though you didn't have any questions. I hope that the questions will come up and you'll actually be debating these topics and actually spreading the knowledge on gender-based violence and gender and non-discrimination, that is. So please do join the next Twitter space that we will be having at 12:30 on climate change, where you will be having some of the climate change youth ambassadors speaking to you guys and letting you know of all the actions that we are taking as the UN and as Bushfire and all of the other partners. I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you.